here from the Touratech USA showroom in downtown Seattle, and today we're going to be installing the upper crash bars on the BMW R1250GS. These upper crash bars are made out of stainless steel. They're 25mm diameter tubing, and they're a great place to mount accessory lights on top of providing fantastic protection for the radiators and bodywork at the top of the motorcycle. So let's break apart the hardware kit and see what's included. The hardware kit includes 2 stainless steel brackets, these are for the left and right side of the motorcycle, 2 nylon locating spacers for the bottom of the upper crash bars, 4 25mm M8 bolts, 2 30mm M8 bolts, 12 M8 washers, 2 M8 spacers, 6 M8 nylock nuts, 2 35mm M6 bolts, 4 M6 washers, 2 45mm M6 bolts, 2 M6 spacers, and a center crossbar. These 2 M8 spacers are only required if you are using the crash bars on a bike that does not have lower engine crash bars. Since our bike has Touratech lower engine bars on it, we're not going to be using these today. Now let's take a look at what tools we're going to need to complete the installation. I'll be using this Cruise Tools 3/8 T-handle. These Cruise Tools 3/8 drive Allen wrenches and Torx wrenches. We're using a 6mm Allen and a 3mm Allen, as well as a Torx T25. I'll be using a 13mm spanner wrench, some Loctite, some anti-seize, and a rubber mallet. Now that we have everything we need all together, let's head over to the bike and get to work. To begin the installation, we need to remove the bodywork from the front of the motorcycle. The first step is to remove the side panel from both sides of the bike. Each side panel is held on with 5 bolts. There's 2 here at the front and then 3 on the inside, 1 here, here, and here. Pay attention to which bolts comes out of which locations because some of them have a shoulder on them and others don't, and you want to make sure you get the right bolts back in the right places. With all the bolts out of the side panels, they're retained just by a single pressure clip right here. So just pull out on the side panel and it'll pop right off. With the side panels removed, now we can remove the beak from the front of the motorcycle. The beak's held on with 6 different bolts. There's 1 on the top on either side here, 1 here on both sides, and then 2 directly underneath the front of the beak. Once you have all the bolts out, you just pull the beak forward away from the motorcycle gently. With the bodywork removed, now remove these 2 bolts on either side of the front subframe. Do the same on the other side of the motorcycle. Now install the upper mounting bracket on either side of the front subframe. You'll use 2 of the M6 button head bolts, 1 of the short ones, 1 of the long ones. Put an M6 washer on each one and use the 7mm thick M6 spacer at the rear mounting point. Make sure you put some blue Loctite on each one of these bolts before installing them. Now do the same on the other side of the motorcycle. Now that the brackets are hung on both sides of the motorcycle, use a 3mm Allen drive tool to bring them both hand tight. Use a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer to drive the nylon spacer into the bottom of the crash bar. For the lower mount of the upper crash bars, your setup might be a little bit different depending on whether or not you're using lower engine crash bars. On this bike, we've previously installed these Touratech engine crash bars, so we need to remove this M8 bolt at the bottom position right here. If you do not have lower engine crash bars on your bike, this hole will already be open in the frame. Now do the same on the other side. Now is the time to hold the crash bar up to the motorcycle and make sure that all the bolt holes are lining up properly. If the bolt holes at the front aren't quite in the right place, you can loosen those brackets and adjust the position before we put the bodywork back on. Now that we've test fitted the bars and made sure that all the brackets are in the right place, it's time to put the bodywork back on the motorcycle and prepare for final assembly. Now it's time to get the three main pieces of the crash bar mounted up on the motorcycle. The way I like to do this is you take the center crossbar and put it up in between the two brackets underneath the motorcycle, and then use one of the M8 by 25 millimeter bolts on the opposite side of the motorcycle from the first crash bar you're going to install, just to make sure that this crossbar doesn't drop out while you're trying to put the bolts in on the side that you're working on. Now that the center bar is in place with a single bolt on the opposite side just to keep it from falling out, you're going to take another one of your M8 by 25 bolts. You're going to put a washer over it and then put anti-seize on the threads. Grab another washer and one of the M8 nylock nuts. I like to set the nut and washer here on the front fender so that I can grab it. And then take the crash bar, locate the bottom mount with the plastic spacer, and then rotate the crash bar up into position and insert the bolt. For the lower mounting point of the upper crash bar, you may need to use this M8 spacer. This spacer is required if your bike does not have lower engine crash bars installed. On this particular bike, we have crash bars installed, so we aren't going to use this spacer. You're going to need one of the M8 by 35 millimeter bolts, two M8 washers, and one M8 nylock nut. Make sure that you've applied anti-seize to the threads of the bolt. Now install the second M8 by 25 millimeter bolt in the upper crash bar mounting position. Make sure you use two washers, the nylock nut, and apply anti-seize to the threads of the bolt. Now that the crash bar is loosely installed on this side of the motorcycle, we're going to head over to the other side and do exactly the same thing. Now that the crash bars are loosely installed on both sides, we're going to go through with our 6 millimeter Allen wrench and our 13 millimeter combination wrench and tighten up all of the bolts to 8 Newton meters, and that's approximately 6 foot-pounds. The installation of these Touratech upper fairing crash bars is now complete. I really like the way they follow the lines of the body of the bike, and they offer great protection for the radiators and the side panels. If you want to learn more about products we make for your motorcycle, visit our website, touratech-usa.com. And while you're looking at this video, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to know when we release more videos just like this.